welcome back. We are going to stuff a boneless pork loin today. So, our boneless pork loin, about a 7 to 9 pound average. We're looking for the tail, and the tail is on this side of the loin. So when you look at the underside, that would be the tail, and that is going to mark our first cut. Now I want to go down to about a 1/2 inch from the cutting board. And I want to even all the way across. My first cut. When you're cutting, when you're making a butterfly, I'm using my hand as a guide, so my knife feels like that. What you don't want to have happen is for your knife to go down and cut through the pork. Okay, we're staying at about a 1/2 inch thick throughout. I'm going to do one more cut, same way. Just making sure that your knife does not cut through. And if it cuts through, then you get a hole and your stuffing leaks out. Okay, that's it. Flank steak, smaller pork loin, but you can see how this went back together. The eye comes down. Take the tail, cut the tail to a 1/2 inch thick. This is your first cut, and then your second cut. And that's it. We'll be back in a few minutes to stuff them. The pork loin is ready to be stuffed. Right here we've got an apple cranberry stuffing. And it's celery, onions, Granny Smith apple, chicken broth, stuffing, sage, and that's it. The important part about the stuffing here, if you look at the consistency, you want it to stay together. If it's too wet, it's going to ooze out. Some people like to put eggs in stuffing like this because it gives it body and stays more consistent. I prefer not to. All right, right now we're just taking this and then squeezing it back in. And I'm going to continue to roll, and there you have it. This is what we're going to stuff. Now, my twining technique is sort of cavemanish. It's not the proper technique, but for me, it works. Do a single knot at one end. You want to make sure it's tight enough to hold all that stuffing in. And then I loop around. I go about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, pulling it tight each time I do it. Okay, now I'm going to cut off enough twine. I'm going to make a loop. So you got this and this. And this is a great way to finish it up. I make the knot here. So this is what you have now. And then I pull it tight, and you've got a nice tight stuffed pork loin. We're going to top this with salt, pepper, rosemary, and I'll show you the finished product in about an hour. Today we're going to make a breaded pork cutlet. We're going to start with a boneless loin. Now this boneless loin has got a decent amount of fat, and we're going to need to trim that off. We're going to start right here at the tail. There's a piece that is mostly fat. When we're making, this is going to be a pounded cutlet. When you're making this, you want to remove the fat, because when you have the fat in there, it'll make, as you're cooking the pork cutlet, it's going to make your pork cutlet curl and take shapes that you don't want it to take. So I'm removing the fat, cap, and the silver skin. And we're almost there, just a little bit more here. You don't have to get it all, but you want the tougher parts, that connective tissue. Okay, now that that's removed, I'm going to cut these, and I'm going to be looking for about let's see what this weighs, about 2 ounces, no, about 4 ounces. So we're going to do 4-ounce cuts. As we go down, your loin is getting a little bit more narrow, so we're just going to go a little bit thicker. Okay. Now with our tenderizing mallet, I like to use these large size. With each cutlet, I'm just going to pound that out. And you can see it's about a 1/4 inch thick. Smooth on one side and like that. And we're going to bread these. Okay, we're all set. All of our pork tenderloin has been pounded out. You don't want any connective tissue. If you had it here, it would make it curl up. So right now, we're just going to flour, egg, and bread. The meat sticks to the flour. The meat sticks to the flour, sticks to the egg. Flour sticks to the egg, and then the breadcrumb. When you're doing this, just make sure that your hand that is doing the breading stays out of the egg. And this is just seasoned breadcrumb. I've got parsley, salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic, and that's what you want. So then once we have this, then we're going to pan fry these. And that's it. Gently pat it in. And that's what we're looking for. Now I could finish this. Okay, we're back. Our pan has been heating for about 10 minutes. Everything, whether you're pan frying, sauteing, everything starts with a hot pan. I got about a medium-high flame on here. I don't want it smoking hot. I want about a medium flame. We pan fry, we're not deep frying. So pan fry, you're cooking one side first and then the other. You should be able to see that oil dance a little bit. And you see it moving around. That means it's almost ready. By heating your pan first, you're creating a non-stick barrier between the pan and your food. We're ready. When you put it in, make sure that when you're putting it in, don't be afraid of the oil, but always put it so the oil, if it does flash, it will flash away from you. Okay, when you're pan frying, it is real important that the oil be at the right temperature. The temperature would be about 350 degrees. You want, if it's too cold, your food is just going to soak up that oil like a sponge. If it's too hot, your food will burn and be crisp before it is done. So it's just got to be just right. I'm going to turn these. These are thin cutlets, and they're going to be done just by turning it. If you had a thicker cutlet, you could brown both sides and finish it in the oven. You would just finish it at a lower temperature just to finish the cooking. All right, we're beginning to see around the edge, it's starting to get cooked. That's what you want.
Oh yeah, that one is for me.
And that one's from Mo.
Okay, thanks.
And that's what you want. Nice, golden brown. Now we're pan frying about 12 of these. When we're pan frying, you want to make sure that when you're taking your cutlet into your pan, you're shaking off any excess. If you have breadcrumbs in the pan, those breadcrumbs will burn, and that will give your pork cutlet a really off taste. Another 20 seconds or so. I've got a sheet pan set. I lined it with paper towels to absorb the extra grease. Okay, we're ready. When your cutlet is done, these are thin pounded cutlet. If this was raw, that would flop down. But we're done, and you got a nice firmness to it. Browned on both sides. The other part about pan frying, especially when you're doing a few of them, you want to keep, this is not a deep fryer, it does not have a thermostat. You're going to regulate the temperature of this by continually adding food to the pan. So as one goes out, one goes in. And we're just going to repeat this process until we've got all of the cutlets prepared. All right, the pork cutlet's done. I've got my friend Monique here. She loves pork cutlet. It's one of her favorite things. So we're gonna look at the pork cutlet. It's nice and brown. We got nice color. It's crisp. It's done. When we cut into it, that's what you want. You want it completely done. A little bit of juiciness is left in there. And that's it. So the big test. Monique, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's try this. Now, like I showed you. Oh,
Wonderful.
no. Oh,
Oh.
oh my God.
It's good.
They're so good. They're so good.
It is. You know how mine go?
Nice and tender. Excuse me. Tenderizing the meat, when you pound it out, really tenderizes this pork. You really can't go wrong with this. That's pan fried. All right, we'll be back. All right, what we have here is the same pork loin, but it is bone in. On the underside of the pork loin, these would be the ribs. This would be the backbone. So this is a French pork rack, and we're going to make pork chops out of this. We could also make a crown roast, like this, and you put your stuffing in the middle, but we are just going to make these into chops. Going to trim this end piece so it's a more reasonable thickness. And here we have it. Setting this into a shallow pan. When we're making pork chops, one of the biggest problems that when we're cooking pork chops is the toughness and the dryness. So we're going to address that by introducing a simple brine. Now this brine is the real basics of what a brine should do. It's going to introduce some subtle flavors, but it is just a quart of water. It's a quarter cup of salt, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. The garlic is cracked. When you crack the garlic, this is what you want. You want that garlic clove to be intact, but just you want all the oils and the fragrance to come out of that. So I've got garlic cracked, rosemary, and thyme. The biggest thing that we want is the salt water is going to make pork chops retain their juiciness when they're baked, and the sugar is just to counter that salt. When you're making this brine, there are a lot of variations you can use. You could use apple juice, apple cider vinegar, maple syrup. There's a lot of things that you can do, but the real essential ingredient is salt water. So I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'm going to let it cool. I'm going to place this on top of the pork chops. I'm going to let the pork chops marinate for at least 6 hours, and then we're going to grill. And you're going to really see the difference to this simple marinade, this brine, as to not doing anything. Okay, our marinade has cooled to room temperature, or brine, and this is what you want. Now we're going to put this in the refrigerator for at least 6 hours. We'll come back and we'll grill these up. Okay, to accompany our pork chop, we're going to make a real simple roasted potato and green bean salad. I'm going to start with a mixture of Yukons and Reds. And all I'm doing is having these potatoes love the mixture of the potatoes, different texture, different flavor. All right, we've got our potatoes. Again, cracked garlic. What you're looking for is just that garlic to be squished. I want this garlic to lay with the roasted vegetables. I want them to eat like candy when they come out of the oven. So we've got our garlic. We've got shallots. All I did was cut the shallots in half. Red pepper, 1-inch dice. Got fresh thyme. Fresh rosemary. Do a couple of pinches of black pepper. Probably about a teaspoon. And probably a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to drizzle with some extra virgin olive oil. And we're just going to toss it. Okay. Sprayed the pan with non-stick spray. You want. I'll roast this at a 375-degree oven. We'll keep it in there for about 15 to 20 minutes. When it comes out, it's going to be served warm with green beans, and I'm going to drizzle some balsamic vinegar and extra virgin olive oil. And that will accompany our pork chop. Okay, our pork chops have been in the brine for 6 hours. I'm going to pat them dry. Okay, I'm going to remove any extra water. Water's not going to do us any good. We're going to discard this brine. And from here, we're going to season our chops with olive oil, salt, and pepper. When I talked about the brine is just going to work. There's all kinds of ways you can flavor a brine, but this brine is just going to work towards making this pork chop tender and juicy. All right, if we wanted to, we could wrap each bone with foil just to prevent that from really burning up while it's on the grill. It's not really necessary because our grill here is not that hot, but you might be working with a grill that is, and you want to preserve the bone because it's part of the aesthetics of how it appears on the plate, so it's kind of important. All right, nice hot grill. back in about 5 minutes. We'll flip it, and in about 5 minutes on the other side. All right, I got nice grill marks on here. They've got a nice color on both sides. There's still a little bit on the raw side, so I'm going to finish this in the oven. I'm going to cook it to a temperature of 145. This is ready. Got the internal temperature of 150 degrees on most of these, so we're good. This is our salad that we made earlier. Simple roasted vegetables. I mixed it with some blanched green beans, and I drizzled it with extra virgin olive oil, salt and pepper, and a little bit of verjus vinegar. It's just a quality vinegar. Just going to set up our dish. Okay, that's our dish. Now we want to take a look at this, and that's what you want. It's just barely pink in the middle. You can still see the juice. Let's give it a taste. So good. All right, remember, a brine is not a marinade. A brine is just for the purpose of tenderizing and making juicy. A marinade is something that you're going to be adding flavor. This recipe for the brine, which is in your schoolwork as well, is just a brine. It is a generic. You can tweak your brine in any way, but a brine is a salty liquid and is meant to retain the juice of that product that you're cooking. So think of a brine and then think of a sauce, but this is a real simple herb marinated brine with just roasted vegetables, and you've got a delicious meal no matter what the occasion. See you guys next week.